Today we're sharing the worst financial mistakes we made on the path to early retirement.
Now, we did end up retiring early when I was in my 40s and Gillian was in her 30s, but not before we made a lot of bad money moves along the way.
Stay with us all the way till the end because we'll be sharing the money mistake we have only just managed to resolve, and we've been retired for almost a year.
If you've been following our story, welcome back. We are still here based in the exciting city of Athens, and if you're interested to know what it's like to be some of the only tourists in Athens right now, you can check out our cost of living video, which will come out in a few weeks. If you're new to the channel, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Gillian. We're a couple who saved and invested our way to financial independence. And if you're looking for how-tos for early retirement and financial independence, you can click on subscribe for a new video every week.
Last week, we shared all of our very best financial decisions, the ones that helped us get to where we are today, which is retired early and traveling the world. And if you haven't seen that video, we will link it in the description below, along with all the other videos we talk about today.
But we weren't perfect. We made a lot of mistakes along the way, and so today we're going to share with you our 7 worst financial blunders.
Today we're going to cover everything we did wrong, all our embarrassing financial mistakes. That includes real estate, investing, lifestyle inflation, and lots more.
Our hope is that by sharing our mistakes, it might inspire you to take a look at your own financial journey to see what you might want to change or improve.
But before we get into it, a quick question for everyone who's watching. Do you feel that you have made any big financial mistakes over the course of your journey? Yes or no? Let us know in the comments below. It would be great to know that we're not the only ones.
Let's kick things off with a mistake that many of us have made, especially when we first start investing. Now, early in our relationship, we decided to look at our investments together as a couple. So we met with an investment advisor who assessed our risk tolerance and recommended a plan.
We ended up buying high-fee mutual funds. Now, these were very generic funds, giving us slices of the US, the Canadian, and the bond markets. Ultimately, these funds did not outperform the market and therefore really didn't merit the high management fees that we were paying.
We held those funds for a couple of years until the day we did the math and realized we were overpaying. And those management fees were just going to be chipping away at our returns over the years.
We decided to exit those funds, which meant we had to pay a penalty in order to leave early. Now, it was very painful to hand over even more money, but it was worth it to know that our investments were back within our control.
We talk more about this investing mistake and some others that we've made in our recent video all about our investing strategy.
Our next big mistake was in the area of real estate. So when we got married, we decided to do what every young couple does and immediately run out and buy a home we could just barely afford.
We had a very fixed idea of what we were looking for, specifically a warehouse space converted into a loft. We never really thought about resale value or whether it was a good investment.
We ended up buying a home that expressed our unique style and taste, so it was a spacious, open concept, kind of hipster loft that was really only good for a single person or a couple.
Once we moved to Singapore, only then did we realize just how difficult it was going to be to sell because it really only appealed to a limited number of buyers.
Even in Toronto's sizzling hot real estate market, it took 6 months to sell that condo. And by that time, we were actually already living in Singapore, so we had to pay for rent and mortgage. So we didn't end up losing money on the deal, but we also only broke even after 5 years of homeownership.
Now, we really enjoyed living there and we'll always think of our first home fondly. However, buying this particular home was not a great financial move and we learned a lot from the experience.
Our next mistake also has to do with our choice of home. So when we moved to Singapore, we decided to rent not a 1-bedroom apartment, but a 2-bedroom apartment. Our rationale for renting a 2-bedroom apartment was that living so far away from home, we wanted to be able to host friends and family whenever they visited.
In fact, we did have quite a few visitors during the time we lived in Singapore, but the reality is that second bedroom was still sitting empty for 10 months of the year. We would have spent less if we had put our family up in a hotel when they visited instead. We talk about renting more space than we needed in this video about how to save half your income.
Now we have one more home-related topic that we're gonna get to at the end of this video. It's that mistake that we have been paying for all this time up until last month. So stick around for that one.
In the meantime, we're going to get into our worst lifestyle inflation mistakes, the ones that chipped away at our bank accounts month after month.
So while we were living in Singapore for 6 years, that's when the lifestyle inflation really started to creep in. So we were making higher salaries, we were paying lower tax, and therefore we had more disposable income.
Yes, we were saving a lot, but we were also spending. And one of the things we were spending on were fancy vacations.
We had a lot of stress from our high pressure jobs and really saw vacations as a way to get some relief. And honestly, I got through every single work week by fantasizing about my next vacation and counting down the days.
When we first moved to Singapore, we started off with simple trips on budget airlines to low-cost countries like Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam.
Eventually, we graduated to more elaborate and more expensive trips like hiking in Japan or camper vanning in New Zealand, or touring the Baltic countries. The list goes on.
We justified these trips to ourselves by saying that we needed them for our mental health, and we were still saving quite a bit anyway. However, if we had stuck with the more budget trips, we would have been further ahead financially.
Now, vacations were not the only area of our life where lifestyle inflation crept in. It also got into our day-to-day living in the form of luxuries like a lunch delivery service.
Food was one of the ways we coped with high-pressure jobs that had us working longer and longer hours.
In particular, I went through a phase where I no longer wanted to make my lunch every day because I felt like I just didn't have the time. So I ended up signing up for a very fancy paleo lunch delivery service. I told myself that this was something I needed to make my life easier while I was working so many hours. But when I looked at how much I was spending on food 5 days a week for months and months on end, I was embarrassed to see what those lunches were adding up to.
More generally, during this period we were turning to food delivery services and restaurant meals for both convenience and entertainment.
When we finally started tracking our spending, we were shocked to discover how much we were spending on food from outside our home, which we talk about in this video here.
Another poor financial decision was to go to increasingly expensive CrossFit gyms over the course of 8 years. We started out at a reasonably priced gym in Toronto, but 8 years later we were going to the most expensive gym in Singapore.
We had all kinds of rationale for why we had to go to that particular gym. It had the best trainers in the city, and it was literally around the corner from where we lived.
We also felt that going to a CrossFit gym was an important part of our social lives. We met most of our friends through the gym.
We have since learned that we don't need to join a CrossFit gym just to make friends, and in fact we can stay fit in other ways, not just by doing CrossFit. We talked about the whole process of learning how to substitute CrossFit with a self-directed program in this video about how we cut costs by 40%.
Now this was one of our earliest videos, so you might notice a difference in the production quality, but it's still worth taking a look. And now for the one financial mistake that we have only just finished paying for, and that was keeping a storage locker for over 7 years.
When we first moved to Singapore, we had no idea how long we would be staying there. So we decided to rent a furnished apartment in Singapore and put everything we owned, our entire household, into storage in Toronto.
We started out with a very large and expensive locker that could hold all of our household goods. Then on visits back to Canada, we reduced the amount of stuff in storage along with the size and price of the locker.
With each one of these rounds of downsizing, when we looked at the stuff we had in storage, we couldn't believe the junk that we had decided to keep. That said, 7 years later, we were still paying to keep a few things in storage month after month.
Just last month, we finally managed to get our things down to just a few bins that we were able to store with family. The lesson we can take from this is to not put off decisions that cost money because it can really add up over the years.
If you want to see which decisions we got right on the path to financial independence, we recommend watching this video right here. You can go ahead and click on it now.
And if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button to let us know, and don't forget to subscribe for a new video every week. Thank you for watching till the end, and we'll see you back next time.